Arhan grew up on his father's stories. You know the ones. The kind of family history that sounds a bit too good to be true. According to the legends, the caravans were the gods of war, a lineage of legendary swordmasters who were essentially the kingdom's VIPs for over 200 years. Looking at the massive portrait of his ancestor, Liam Caravan, it's easy to see why. The guy looks like the definition of a final boss. But that was then. 2 centuries later, the gods of war have been demoted to village landlords. Arhan's daily reality isn't high-stakes duels or royal banquets. It's harvesting wheat and making sure the tenants are actually working. It's hard to feel like a legendary warrior when your primary weapon is a sickle and your biggest enemy is a long day under the sun. Arhan isn't the type to get lost in the hype. He's a skeptic. He looks at the family's ancient sword and notices it's a bit too pristine. No chips, no rust, not even a scratch from a single battle. He even spent his nights buried in history books, searching for any mention of the great Liam Caravan. The result? Total silence. Not a single record exists. At this point, Arhan is pretty sure his family's glory is just a collection of tall tales meant to make their humble life feel a little more important. But honestly, he didn't mind. Arhan liked his life. He liked the villagers, he liked the quiet, and he was okay with the caravan name being a local legend rather than a world-shaking power. He was ready to leave the stories in the past and just be a good lord to his people. He even sets off to the neighboring town, planning to bring back a few gifts for the villagers. He thought he had all the time in the world. He was wrong. The transition from peace to a nightmare happened in total silence. There was no warning, just the sudden, cold reality of steel. In the time it took for the sun to set, the village was turned into a graveyard. It wasn't an army. It was just one man, a swordmaster who moved with a level of indifference that was more terrifying than any monster. To him, the people Arhan cared about weren't even opponents. They were just a checklist. Arhan can only watch as his life is dismantled in less than 10 minutes. The gifts he bought, the fruit, the doll for a little girl. They're just lying in the dirt now. The killer doesn't even seem to have a personal grudge. He's just a professional, following orders to erase a bloodline that history supposedly forgot. As the village burns, Arhan's butler pulls him away, covering his eyes with a desperate plea. "Don't look, young master." But the damage is done. The stories were fake, but the man who came to kill them was very real. By a single disaster, the caravan name didn't just fall. It was wiped from the map. The slaughter in the village stopped as quickly as it began, leaving Arhan in a world that had turned entirely red. But amidst the bodies, he finds a miracle. His mother is still alive. For a few seconds, the nightmare pauses. He's back in her arms, and that single glimpse of hope feels like enough to overwrite the horror he just witnessed. But miracles in this world are usually just a setup for a harder fall. We see what really happened during that encounter. The Swordmaster didn't kill Arhan's parents during his initial 10-minute harvest. He was more clinical than that. He gave them a choice that was essentially a death sentence. They had 1 month to pack up 2 centuries of family history and disappear from the continent. It wasn't an act of mercy. It was a deadline for their total erasure. As the surviving villagers flee the territory, the caravan manor becomes a house of ghosts. Arhan's father has completely lost his grip on reality. He's in the library, literally slamming his head into the bookshelves until he bleeds, chanting the fake heroic titles his family lived on. The Iron-Blooded Guardian, the knight who hunts nightmares. He's a man crushed by the weight of a legacy he never actually had the power to uphold. Arhan's mother is the only one who sees the truth. She knows the legend is a lie, and that the Swordmaster is a force they can't fight. She chooses to stay with her husband, refusing to let him die alone in his madness, but she forces Arhan into a carriage with the butler. She makes him promise to never seek revenge and never pick up a sword. She wants the caravan name to die with them, as long as her son keeps breathing. But Arhan isn't built for running. Somewhere in the dark woods, he escapes the carriage. He can't leave them behind. He spent the time leading up to the deadline, brewing deadly poisons, and tuning a mechanical crossbow, clinging to the logic that even a swordmaster is just a man whose heart can be pierced. It's a calculated, desperate gamble. Arhan returns to the manor ready to be a savior. Instead, his father's head is mounted to the flag like a trophy, and his mother is laying dead under the Swordmaster. Arhan loses control and tries to fight, but it's meaningless. To the Swordmaster, Arhan isn't even an opponent. He's a nuisance. He spares Arhan not out of kindness, but because Arhan isn't 18 yet. He tells Arhan to go and drown in despair, and that not a single trace of Caravan's will can remain on this continent, and if Arhan dares to continue that bloodline, he will find him again, and walks away, leaving him in the mud next to his mother's body. Arhan is at 0. He's lost everything. A year has passed since the night the Caravan family was erased. He remained in the estate, living among the graves of everyone he ever knew. It was his workshop, the place where he began preparing for his revenge. Pinnacle currently hailed as the strongest sword on the continent, a righteous sentinel who eradicates evil, superhuman, praised for brilliant talent, and a guardian who supposedly protects the kingdom's peace. Carlos, wielder of the 10 swords. It's the ultimate irony. The man who took everything from Arhan is celebrated by the world as its greatest hero. What secrets did the Caravan family actually hold? Why did a man as powerful as Carlos bother to wipe them out? And most importantly, who was really behind the order? In the middle of his despair, the shadows of the manor began to shift. A cold, blue light erupted from the ancestral sword, solidifying into a figure Arhan had only seen in portraits. Arhan's first instinct wasn't hope. It was a sanity check. He wondered if the mental shock had finally driven him to madness, but the spirit addressed him with a voice that vibrated through the floorboards.
Arhan Caravan, show some respect, my descendant. I sense you're wavering. Are you afraid you've truly gone mad?
Liam Caravan, the original god of war. Arhan snapped, screaming, "Why now?" at the man who stood by while his family died. He revealed that he had been watching Arhan rot for an entire year. Arhan demanded to know why he hadn't appeared sooner, and Liam's answer was cold. He wasn't waiting for Arhan to grow strong. He was waiting for his hatred to reach a certain depth. He needed to know if Arhan was obsessed enough to give up everything for revenge. Liam Caravan is a ghost that doesn't do gentle guidance. He tells Arhan his talent is pathetic and utterly hopeless. He confirms Arhan's own suspicion, that if he tries to train like a normal human, he will never even touch Carlos. Then he drops the iron rule of the continent. Only a swordmaster can kill a swordmaster. Carlos is a transcendent being beyond human limits, and on his own, Arhan is nothing. But that's going to change, because Liam is going to help him. He says that there is only one path that Caravan can take.
Eat my sword, descendant of the steel-blooded.
Liam reveals that the caravans were never fully human. They carry dwarven blood, a lineage of iron and fire. They didn't inherit the craftsmanship of the dwarves. They inherited a biological theft of talent. A special ability passed through the bloodline, the power to consume swords. It defies every law of nature. By literal consumption, a caravan absorbs the memories, the techniques, and the raw combat experience of every master who previously held a blade. Arhan has no talent to learn, so he has to steal. He wants Liam to tell him how to consume the sword, so Liam tells him that it's easy. He just has to heat the sword until the blade is soft enough and then swallow it. It's painful and agonizing process, but Arhan remembers what Carlos did to his family. He will never forgive him. He vows that he will become a swordmaster to kill him. Arhan wakes up to a quiet morning, but the peace is a lie. He bolts upright, screaming as his mind struggles to process the fact that he swallowed a blade of molten steel just hours ago. Physically, he looks the same. No burns, no scars, no instant transformation. But the ancestral sword is gone, leaving only a hilt in the dust. It's the first real evidence that the nightmare he invited into his body is actually happening. The ghost of Liam Caravan is still there, and he's as blunt as ever. He calls Arhan's body hopelessly weak, but admits his mental fortitude is commendable. Then comes the catch. Arhan didn't get an instant power-up because the caravan blood has been diluted over 2 centuries. He has the hardware to eat the swords, but he doesn't have the internal furnace to digest them yet. The power of the first blade is just sitting in his core, waiting for a vessel that won't break under the pressure. Arhan doesn't complain. After a year of being a victim, he's just grateful for a path that doesn't involve digging graves. He accepts Liam as his master, pledging himself to the progenitor of his bloodline. It's a formal contract signed in the ruins of his home. Liam's original plan was to turn Arhan into a swordmaster overnight. But since the bloodline is weak, they have to take the long road. The training arc doesn't happen in a temple. It happens in the slums, specifically a massive graveyard of scrap metal and rusted blades. Liam explains that the best fuel for Arhan isn't a pristine royal sword. It's the worn-out, blood-caked weapons that have been handled by 1,000 desperate hands. Each piece of trash carries a record of survival and skill. For the next month, Arhan becomes a gourmet of the junkyard. He eats and eats, devouring rusted axes and broken spearheads. He isn't training his muscles. He's building a foundation out of the failures and experiences of dead men. He's looking for swords he can actually digest, the low-tier iron that will slowly reforge his body into something capable of holding Liam's true power. While Arhan is training in the gray dust of the slums, a group of low-level bandits have moved into his home. They treat the caravan manor like a clubhouse, lounging on the furniture and looting the silver. They think they've hit the jackpot. To them, the silence of the village is just a sign that the landlords are dead and the rules don't apply anymore. But they make the mistake of getting personal. They find Arhan's mother's clothes and start making the kind of comments that guarantee a death sentence. They think they're the predators in an abandoned house. They don't realize the owner is standing in the doorway watching them with eyes that have spent a month seeing the world through the memories of steel. Arhan doesn't yell. He doesn't show rage. He just tells them his mother liked things to be tidy. He offers them a final chance to state their business, to be guests. But the moment they move to attack, the classification changes. They aren't guests anymore. They're intruders. Arhan moves with a level of speed and cold precision that didn't exist a month ago. He doesn't just fight, he erases. 1 second, a bandit is yapping about common sense. The next, he's witnessing the results of Arhan's new diet firsthand. The pathetic descendant is gone. The sword devourer has returned to his manor, and he's still very, very hungry. Before Arhan returned to face the men defiling his home, he had to survive a month of training that looked nothing like the heroic legends of old. Liam Caravan didn't start him with a broadsword or a shield. He started with a specialized tool, a blade forged for a single, clinical purpose. It had no edge for slashing and no weight for crushing. It looked less like a weapon and more like a silver needle. Arhan was skeptical. He looked at the fragile steel and expected it to snap. But Liam's instruction was cold. Consume it with gratitude. This needle once belonged to a woman with a frame even more slender than Arhan's, a survivor who used this exact blade to single-handedly end the lives of over 2,000 enemies. In the world of the caravans, lethality isn't about the size of the steel. It's about the precision of the strike. As Arhan devoured the blade, he didn't just gain a technique. He inherited a nightmare. He entered the memories of Mary, a girl who watched her world turn to ash in a burning mansion. After losing her parents to the flames, she was sent to an orphanage that worshipped the goddess of fire. For a child whose mind was a permanent inferno, being forced to pray to the flame was a systematic kind of torture. She spent her days praying for a death that refused to come. That changed when she met Heckle, a wandering swordsman with a face like stone. His silver blade was the only thing cold enough to drown out the heat in her mind. Mary chose the needle over sturdier weapons, accepting a blade that offered zero defense. She decided that if the fire couldn't kill her, she would learn to cut her way out of the hell in her head. It was her first step toward wanting to live, and now that resolve belongs to Arhan. The training month ends, and we return to the present. They thought this was a joke. They thought he was powerless. Liam reveals the truth about Arhan's training. He didn't actually teach Arhan any swordsmanship. He spent the month focused on one thing: physical conditioning. He forced Arhan to run for hours until his body was a machine built for endurance. The actual skill with the blade? That didn't come from a teacher. It came from the digestion. The hopelessly weak descendant is gone. In his place is a caravan who has taken his first step. Arhan stands over his first kill, but there's no dramatic music or triumphant roar. He isn't feeling like a hero. He's feeling like a machine. This isn't just Arhan fighting. It's the digestion Master Liam promised. As Arhan grips the needle-thin blade, he can feel Mary's memories flowing into his nervous system. He's seeing her again, the sewing gypsy, a woman who didn't have the brute strength to survive a long war, so she learned how to end one in a single heartbeat. Through the steel, Arhan experiences Mary's final days with Heckle. He feels her grief as the old swordsman dies, but more importantly, he inherits Heckle's philosophy. Heckle didn't teach Mary how to be a knight. He taught her how to survive. He taught her that a fragile body isn't a weakness. It's a reason to be faster, sharper, and more precise than anyone else. Back in the manor, the intruders are starting to panic. Liam Caravan watches the cleanup from the shadows. He notes that while a little fear helps you survive, these men have let their terror cloud their judgment. To them, Arhan isn't a kid anymore. He's a murderous fiend. He's used their own panic to make himself look like a transcendent being, a ghost in his own house that they can't even touch. Arhan doesn't give them time to think. He moves with a level of mechanical precision that makes his previous year of training look like a joke. He doesn't slash wildly, he aims for the vital points. One bandit collapses. The bandits are yelling, trying to coordinate, but they've already lost. Arhan has surrendered his body to the memory of the gypsy. He moves with the fluid, unnatural grace of a dancer, twisting through the air and striking from angles that shouldn't be possible. He's proving the caravan rule. When you can't win with power, you win with the kind of efficiency that makes power irrelevant. Arhan isn't just standing around. He's back to doing what he knows best, digging graves. He's spent the last year burying his own family, and tonight he's simply adding more names to the list of people who shouldn't have stepped foot on caravan soil. He doesn't feel the weight of taking a life. He just feels the vibration of the kill. Everything Liam said was true. The digestion has officially begun, and Arhan's humanity is the first thing on the menu. Liam Caravan floats nearby, explaining the biological fine print. A caravan doesn't just get stronger, they evolve under pressure. The bloodline is designed to grow in the heat of a life or death struggle. It's an evolutionary cheat code that only activates when your heart is beating fast enough to crack your ribs. Arhan spent a month wondering why his master made him do endless cardio. Now he understands. Power is useless if the vessel carrying it runs out of breath. Liam uses the climb as a classroom, breaking down the hierarchy of the continent. You start as a beginner, hope to become a walker, and if you're lucky, you might become an expert. But above all of them is the Swordmaster, the Mind Sword stage. To reach that, a human heart isn't enough. Human hearts have built-in limiters. A caravan needs to forge a heart of steel, a furnace that won't melt when the real power starts flowing. Forging that heart isn't a metaphor. It's a process of pushing the body to the absolute brink of death until biology has no choice but to upgrade. Arhan is hanging off a vertical cliff, fingers bleeding, realizing that he's essentially being welded into a weapon. He isn't looking for a right path anymore. He's accepted that any path leading to Carlos's throat is the only one worth taking. While Arhan is becoming a natural disaster in the mountains, the rest of the world is starting to notice the silence. In the taverns of the Verdi region, the caravan territory has become a ghost story. People whisper about the village where no one has been seen for a year. The stories are getting creative. Some say a monster wave swept through. Others say it's a playground for necromancers experimenting with forbidden magic. The consensus is simple. If you want to stay alive, you stay away from the West. But rumors draw predators. In the corner of a dim tavern, a new player enters the game. He's wiping blood from his mouth, listening to the stories of a village where people disappear, and he isn't walking away. He's leaning in. He's looking for something dangerous, and he's just found his next destination. The world thinks the caravans are a dead name and a cursed ruin. Arhan still trained, fought the uninvited guests. Even on the days when it was struggled to lift his arms, he still went through all of it without missing a single day. A month passed. He unfortunately did not manage to form a mana heart, but he clearly feels a change within. One of these changes are his senses. They became incredibly sharper, not just his 5 senses, but also his judgment and concentration. It's incomparable to what it was before. Every time he wields the needle when he focuses on a single point, it feels like time has stopped. The reason for this change is just one thing: the ability to feel mana. During his meditation, he thinks that it's astonishing to have achieved this without forming a mana heart. But Liam says he still has a long way before he is no longer a novice. He explains that Once Arhan forms a mana heart, he will become a sword beginner, and only then he and owner of Needle will be on equal footing. And if he takes one more step forward, he will be able to enhance his physical abilities and construct a domain for offensive and defensive, reaching the real of superhumans, Swordwalker. Arhan also senses man who entered his territory a while ago and settled there. A guy from the tavern. He is a Swordwalker. He is on a completely different level, Liam says. Arhan wonders what to do with him. He can't abandon the territory and run to avoid the fight. It's the only place that holds everybody's memories. Liam tells him to grow stronger, because in this world only strong have the answer. He stands in confrontation with the Swordwalker. The trial has arrived. The man says that if Arhan shows him his back, he will be cut down on the spot.